Most people believe struggle is the obstacle standing between them and a better life. They imagine that once stress disappears, once income stabilizes, once routines become predictable, everything will finally fall into place. Comfort becomes the reward they work toward, the moment when uncertainty ends and life begins to feel secure. And for a while, comfort feels exactly like success. You wake up without urgency, bills are manageable, work becomes familiar, your environment stops demanding constant adaptation. Problems become smaller, more predictable, easier to handle. Nothing feels wrong, which is precisely why the comfort trap is so difficult to see. Because comfort does not arrive as a warning, it arrives as relief. After years of effort, relief feels deserved. You finally understand your role. Expectations are clear. The risks that once kept you awake at night begin to fade. Stability replaces uncertainty, and stability feels like progress. But beneath that stability, a subtle shift begins. Your life stops expanding and starts repeating. The same routines become permanent. The same decisions recycle daily. Weeks begin to resemble each other. Time moves faster, not because life accelerates, but because novelty disappears. Human psychology depends on challenge to create awareness. When challenge fades, attention narrows. You stop questioning patterns that once felt temporary. Comfort turns situations into identities. You are no longer working towards something new. You are maintaining something familiar. And maintenance requires protection. Without noticing, your priorities change. Instead of asking what could improve your future, you begin asking what might threaten your present. Decisions slowly reorganize around preservation. You avoid risks that once felt exciting. You delay changes that once felt possible. Ideas that used to energize you now feel inconvenient, not because you lost ambition, because comfort rewires perception. The brain interprets stability as safety, and safety becomes something to defend at all costs. This creates what psychologists sometimes describe as adaptation equilibrium, the point where improvement stops feeling necessary because discomfort is no longer strong enough to force change. You are not unhappy, but you are no longer moving. The danger of comfort is not failure, it is stagnation disguised as success, and stagnation rarely feels dramatic. It feels reasonable, responsible, mature. You tell yourself you are being practical. You have obligations now, responsibilities. Stability matters more than experimentation. All of this sounds logical, yet logic can quietly hide long-term risk, because the modern world does not remain stable for long. Technology evolves, industries shift, expectations change, skills lose relevance faster than previous generations ever experienced. The environment continues moving even when your routine does not. And when external change accelerates while personal change slows, vulnerability begins to grow. Comfort delays adaptation. It encourages the belief that tomorrow will resemble today. For many people, this belief holds true for years, sometimes decades. Life feels predictable enough that questioning the structure seems unnecessary. But predictability is not permanence. It is simply change moving slowly enough to go unnoticed. Imagine standing on an escalator moving downward at a very slow speed. At first, you barely notice motion. You feel stationary. Only after a long period do you realize you are no longer where you started. Comfort works the same way. It does not push you backward aggressively. It simply removes the motivation to move forward while the world continues shifting around you. This is why comfort affects intelligent people just as strongly as anyone else, sometimes even more strongly. Intelligent individuals learn how to optimize stable environments quickly. They become efficient, reliable, valuable. Their competence reinforces stability, and stability reinforces comfort. Success strengthens the trap. The better you perform inside a predictable system, the less incentive exists to question it. Over time, identity attaches itself to familiarity. Your role becomes part of how you understand yourself. Change begins to feel like loss instead of growth, and loss triggers fear. Not fear of failure, fear of uncertainty. Uncertainty feels dangerous because comfort has reduced your tolerance for it. When life becomes predictable, even small unknowns feel disproportionately risky. You begin waiting for the right time to change, a safer moment, more certainty, better conditions, but comfort quietly postpones every moment that might disrupt itself. The right time never arrives because comfort continuously resets the threshold of acceptable risk. Meanwhile, something else happens beneath the surface. Your adaptability, the ability to operate outside familiar structures, slowly weakens through lack of use. Just like muscles that are never exercised, flexibility fades without resistance, decisions become slower, confidence outside routine declines, independence starts to feel theoretical rather than practical. This does not happen because ability disappears, it happens because experience narrows. A narrowed experience changes belief. You begin to believe stability is necessary rather than temporary. That risk belongs to younger versions of yourself. That change requires conditions you no longer have. Comfort turns possibility into memory. Yet the irony is profound. The same comfort meant to protect your life gradually reduces your ability to respond when protection is actually needed. Because eventually, change always arrives. Not dramatically at first. A new technology appears. Expectations shift. Younger competitors adapt faster. Systems reorganize quietly. Nothing catastrophic happens, but the environment begins asking for flexibility at the exact moment comfort has reduced it. And that is when many people first sense something unsettling. Not panic, not crisis, but awareness. A realization that stability may have been temporary all along. That comfort was never the destination. It was only a phase. And understanding that difference is the first step toward seeing the trap clearly. Once comfort becomes normal, something subtle begins to change inside the mind. You stop evaluating life based on potential and start evaluating it based on disruption. Instead of asking, will this improve my future? The question quietly becomes, will this disturb my current stability? This shift happens automatically. The human brain is not designed to pursue growth indefinitely. It is designed to conserve energy and avoid perceived threats. For most of human history, safety meant survival. Predictability meant protection. So when life becomes stable, the brain interprets that stability as success. And success triggers preservation. You begin protecting routines that once existed only as temporary solutions. Habits become permanent structures. Temporary comfort becomes psychological territory. Anything unfamiliar now feels like danger, even when it represents opportunity. This is the hidden mechanism behind the comfort trap. Comfort lowers your tolerance for uncertainty. At first, this feels positive. Anxiety decreases. Decisions feel easier. Life requires less emotional effort. But slowly, your threshold for discomfort shrinks. Challenges that once felt manageable now feel exhausting. Risks that once felt exciting now feel irresponsible. Change begins to require more emotional energy than staying the same. And because humans naturally choose the path requiring less immediate energy, stagnation becomes the default choice. Not consciously, automatically. This is why people often remain in situations they have already outgrown. Careers that no longer challenge them, routines that no longer inspire them, paths that once made sense but no longer lead anywhere new. From the outside, it looks like hesitation. From the inside, it feels like caution. But caution and comfort are not the same thing. Caution evaluates risk realistically. Comfort exaggerates risk to protect familiarity. The brain begins creating stories to justify staying still. You tell yourself change is impractical right now, that timing is wrong, that responsibilities make experimentation unrealistic. These explanations feel rational because they contain partial truth. But beneath them lies a deeper motivation, avoiding uncertainty. And uncertainty is precisely where growth exists. Another powerful effect emerges during this stage: identity stabilization. Over time, people begin defining themselves through the structures that provide comfort. Job titles, routines, environments, and expectations become part of self-understanding. Change now threatens more than income or routine. It threatens identity. If you have spent years becoming known as reliable, responsible, consistent, stepping into uncertainty feels like abandoning the version of yourself others recognize. Social reinforcement strengthens the trap. Friends and colleagues reward predictability. Society praises stability. Risk-taking later in life is often framed as reckless rather than adaptive. External approval quietly encourages internal resistance to change, and approval is deeply addictive. Humans are social creatures. Acceptance signals safety. When stability earns approval, breaking stability feels like social risk, even when the decision makes logical sense. This creates a powerful psychological equation. Comfort equals safety. Safety equals approval. Approval equals belonging. Leaving comfort begins to feel like isolation. But growth frequently requires temporary isolation, moments where decisions make sense internally before they make sense socially. Most people never cross this phase because discomfort intensifies before improvement appears. Early change feels inefficient. Progress becomes uncertain. Familiar rewards disappear temporarily. Without immediate results, doubt grows quickly. The brain interprets doubt as a warning sign and pushes you back toward familiarity. This is why comfort traps intelligent people so effectively. Intelligence allows you to construct convincing arguments for staying where you are. You analyze risks thoroughly. You calculate potential downsides. You imagine scenarios where change fails. What you rarely calculate is the cost of remaining unchanged. Because the cost of comfort accumulates slowly, it does not appear as crisis. It appears as gradual narrowing. Options decrease quietly. Flexibility fades. Confidence outside routine weakens. Years pass smoothly enough that urgency never becomes strong enough to force adaptation, until adaptation is no longer optional. The modern world introduces change whether individuals prepare for it or not. Economic shifts, technological disruption, organizational restructuring. None of these events require personal readiness. When change arrives suddenly, those deeply adapted to comfort experience shock, not because they lack ability, because their tolerance for uncertainty has been reduced for too long. Meanwhile, individuals who maintained small amounts of discomfort, learning new skills, exploring unfamiliar paths, experimenting gradually, adapt more easily. They never allowed comfort to fully replace adaptability. This reveals an important truth. The opposite of comfort is not suffering. The opposite of comfort is capability. Capability grows through challenge, experimentation, and uncertainty. It develops when outcomes are not guaranteed. Comfort removes these conditions, and without them, growth slows even while life appears stable. This is why comfort feels harmless in the present, but becomes expensive in the future. The cost is not visible immediately. It appears later, when change demands flexibility that comfort quietly reduced. And by the time most people recognize this pattern, the trap already feels deeply rooted. Because comfort was never just a condition. It became a way of thinking. At some point, a quiet realization begins to emerge. Comfort was never the problem. The problem was unconscious comfort. Comfort itself is not negative. Every human being needs stability at certain stages of life. Stability allows recovery, learning, and focus. It provides the foundation from which growth can begin. But comfort becomes dangerous when it stops being temporary. When comfort turns into permanence, adaptation slows down. And when adaptation slows while the world continues changing, vulnerability grows silently. The trap is not that comfort exists. The trap is believing it will last. Many people imagine that freedom comes from escaping discomfort completely, reaching a point where uncertainty disappears forever. Yet life does not work that way. Every stable period eventually meets change. The difference lies in preparation. Some people use comfort as a resting place. Others unknowingly turn it into a cage. The distinction is subtle. Those using comfort intentionally continue expanding capability, even while life feels stable. They learn new skills without immediate necessity. They explore ideas without external pressure. They maintain exposure to uncertainty in small, manageable ways, not because they enjoy discomfort, because they understand adaptability must be practiced before it is required. Meanwhile, those absorbed fully by comfort begin organizing life around preservation. Energy focuses on maintaining predictability. Decisions prioritize avoiding disruption. And slowly, stability transforms into dependency. Dependency does not feel restrictive at first. In fact, it often feels successful. Responsibilities increase. Others rely on you. Life appears structured and secure. But dependency reveals itself during moments of change. When circumstances shift, options suddenly matter. And options exist only if they were built earlier. This is why the comfort trap rarely announces itself dramatically. There is no clear moment when someone realizes they are stuck. Instead, awareness arrives gradually, a feeling that change has become harder than expected. Opportunities appear, but hesitation grows stronger. Not because opportunity disappeared, because tolerance for uncertainty decreased. The irony is profound. Comfort promises safety, yet long-term safety depends on adaptability. The variability comfort slowly reduces. This realization changes how progress is understood. Growth is no longer defined by eliminating discomfort. Growth becomes the ability to remain capable within uncertainty. People who eventually step beyond the comfort trap do not suddenly reject stability. They redefine its role. Comfort becomes a resource, not a destination, a place to recover, not a place to remain forever. They begin introducing small challenges back into life deliberately, learning something unfamiliar, exploring new environments, building skills that extend beyond current routines. These actions rarely look dramatic from the outside, but internally, something important happens. Confidence returns. Not confidence based on predictability, but confidence based on capability. The belief that adaptation is possible regardless of circumstances. Capability changes how fear behaves. Fear does not disappear, but it loses authority. Decisions become less constrained by the need to preserve comfort. Curiosity replaces hesitation. Movement becomes intentional again. And gradually, identity shifts. You stop defining yourself by stability and start defining yourself by adaptability. Instead of asking whether life feels safe, you begin asking whether life remains expandable. Expandable lives evolve. Rigid lives eventually fracture. This is why the people who appear most resilient during periods of change are rarely those who avoided discomfort completely. They are the ones who maintained a relationship with uncertainty long before change forced it upon them. They never allowed comfort to become absolute. They stayed slightly uncomfortable, just enough to remain flexible. Over time, another insight becomes clear. Freedom is not the absence of structure. Freedom is the ability to change structure when necessary. And that ability depends on maintaining adaptability, even during calm periods. The comfort trap convinces people that stability equals arrival, that growth can finally pause. But life does not contain a final stable state. There is only movement. Either intentional movement chosen gradually, or forced movement demanded suddenly. Those who move intentionally experience change as evolution. Those who wait experience change as disruption. The difference is rarely talent or luck. It is awareness. Awareness that comfort is valuable but temporary. Awareness that capability matters more than predictability. Awareness that the goal was never to remove uncertainty from life, but to become strong enough that uncertainty no longer controls decisions. And once that awareness appears, comfort loses its power to trap. It becomes what it was always meant to be, a moment of rest between periods of growth. Not the end of the journey, just a pause before the next direction is chosen consciously. Because ultimately, the greatest risk was never discomfort. The greatest risk was becoming so comfortable that you stopped preparing for change. And the people who continue moving forward are not those who avoided comfort, but those who never allowed comfort to define who they could become.